Okay, good morning. Well, it's morning here in Spain and in the UK, where Jawid Jafari is joining us from this morning. It's been a little quiet in the TEFL Development Hub. I'm sorry, it's been quite busy and now it's getting into the festive period, but we'll be back again in January. But we've got a really important topic to finish off the year here in the TEFL Development Hub. So Jawid Jafari, he's from Afghanistan. He's now living in the UK, but he's been researching the situation of women who are living there who no longer have access to higher education, to secondary education, and then to university education. So I'm really interested to find out more about this topic and also to spread the word. I know there's probably not a lot we can do, but the more that we can find out about the situation, the perhaps there are some sort of actions that we can take. So, Javi, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me here with you today.
So I mean, first of all, I've seen things in the newspapers, I've read a few stories, but I have no direct experience of the situation there. So perhaps could you tell us a little bit about what is happening and how this awful situation came about?
Well, we all know that the incident happened in August 2021 when the Taliban regained power in Afghanistan in Kabul. And since then, they have imposed lots of inhuman and I would say very sad decisions and decrees and orders, and especially against women. And they have violated human rights and women's rights, all these. So the most concerning point, unfortunately, during the past more than 3 years is that um, they all have restricted all parts of women's life in Afghanistan. They have been imposed different sort of sanctions on their lives. They have been deprived of part of public life, not for example, not being able to travel, access to education, and access to higher education beyond the age of 12, secondary, and working with NGOs, working with government, and all these acts, barbaric, I would say, like barbaric acts. So mostly well, sadly, the most vulnerable group in Afghanistan at the moment is women. So everyone like they have tough times, they have difficult times within this current regime. But the most vulnerable group and those who really suffer is the women in Afghanistan.
Mhm. Yep. And obviously this is coming from the Taliban, and from what I understand, their original um idea, or they originally said that they wanted to create a more Islamic form of education, and then women would be allowed to return to schools and to universities. I mean, do you see that happening?
Well, we see that that didn't happen when they regained the power in August. In September, they barred women, young girl from secondary education. I mean, the age of beyond the age of 12, or we could call it, for example, from year seven beyond, the women have been barred from access to education. And they did say that, okay, this is going to be until the next consideration or announcement, but we could see that it has been more than 3 years. When is this going to happen? All those like girls who were in year 10, year 9, year 11, they could have graduated by now. But all those who
Mhm.
had been like, for example, in year 3, they have been now they're in year 6, and the next year they don't know. So that sadly that didn't happen. So as you mentioned about the Islamic the beliefs, that is, I think that's just the frame. Not only I think that everyone thinks that that's just a frame, because we see other Islamic countries. We do have other Islamic countries, like most like very strict based on the Islamic laws or Sharias, whatever they call it. Like for example, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and all those Middle Eastern countries. No, no such, for example. Restrictions are happening in those countries, which we do have in
Mhm.
Afghanistan. So we can't say that this is something like the education was not in Islamic, or, for example, what was happening previously, it was something against Islam. No, the people of Afghanistan, majority of the people, around more than 95, or I would say something like that, they're Muslims. So
Mhm.
they're not like we do say like they're not non-Muslims, that when the Taliban captured Afghanistan or they came to Afghanistan, now they are converting people to Islam. That's not true. As
Mhm.
that's only a frame, because they don't have any other reasons or any other uh, something else to say. That's what they have got
Mhm.
now at the moment. That they say, okay, we are just making some reforms, and how long? How long, for example, this reform is going to take? And very recent, like this week, early this week on Tuesday, unfortunately, they banned women from medical education as well. You know,
Mhm.
when in December 2022, when women they were barred from higher education, I mean the higher education were not allowed, women were not allowed to have access to, then most of these girls, in order at least to have access to education, in order at least to learn knowledge, they shifted their majors. They shifted to some medical courses like nursing, to be nurses in the future, and midwifery courses. But now recently also that has also been seized. It means again, this has also been gone to the second announcement, and this has been stopped. The women have been barred from accessing to medical education. Very recent. So we can't say that this is going to happen, because we could see that. At least if we had seen the world or the people of Afghanistan, the people in Afghanistan or women in Afghanistan, if they could see a shift in their ideology or in their deeds or in their actions, we could say, yeah, we could say we could be optimistic about that. But all we see is the negative actions that they show against the women in Afghanistan.
Yep. And I mean, I read in the news article about this restriction now on midwifery as well, that there are actual serious concerns for people's health, for particularly for women's health, for neonatal health, because there will be a severe lack of nurses and midwives who are able to work in those positions in the next few years. Hmm.
That is absolutely right. Even before, for example, days before the Taliban came back to power, we had lack of, for example, we didn't have sufficient number of nurses and midwives in Afghanistan. But now with this cease, with this stop, with this recent restrictions, it's just ruining the country. It's just ruining the people's life. They don't care about women, about how many of women they're going to die during the giving birth, or how many children are going to, and you know that this pay, the people are paying the consequences of their deeds and their actions. They don't care about this. I
Hmm.
don't know if they know or they don't know about, but they could see at least some of their leaders, they travel to some other countries, well, like some developed countries, like Middle Eastern countries. They could see at least there that the women have access to education and everything is normal. But in Afghanistan, like I don't know what's really going on in their mind.
And is there a lot of restrictions on the information that's coming into the country and being shared within the country in terms of kind of women being aware of what's happening in the wider world? Are they trying to shut off access to news and information as well?
That's absolutely right. That has happened. You know, very recent. I think the day before yesterday it happened that they just um they closed two, I think, news channels, televisions, with these like they have been blamed for broadcasting some like some movies or some dramas which are against to laws or Sharia laws, whatever they say, and access to information in Afghanistan at the moment is like it's very sad. You can't no news channels in Afghanistan, they can't do anything against the will of the Taliban. Nothing. Like there is no independent, like we could say, journalism or media in Afghanistan. They all have been censored by the Taliban. They're all controlled by the Taliban. Those national like TV channels and radio stations which are in Afghanistan based, they just they just can't do anything against the will of Taliban. Whatever is going to be like, it's like uh, dictate something to those news channels, that what they can broadcast and what they can say. They can't say anything against the will of the Taliban. And sadly, also we see we witness that women also have been deprived of restricted from being on news channels. And recently, again, lots of very sad actions we received from the Taliban is that, again, they have restricted like the TVs, that they should not broadcast televisions. It should be all audio because they believe that human beings should not be seen on TVs. You see that this is really sad. So the news channels in most um, all of them, they have been closed, the TVs, because they believe that human beings should not be seen on TVs.
Okay. Phew, I mean, like I said at the beginning, I honestly, I just cannot imagine what the situation is like there. But I know that people are trying to do what they can within the country and then from the wider world to continue giving young women, young girls access to education. So you're currently at the moment you're teaching groups online.
That's right. Yeah, I teach English to a group of university students who are based in Afghanistan through an institution, and I'm teaching in a university which is all volunteer. Yeah, that's all free for all, and all the students are also women in Afghanistan. That's called Women Online University, which is based in Germany. That's like an online platform, basically, and all those teachers who teach through that university, they all volunteer. It means that there is no like payment, such things. We do have like mainly local teachers. I mean, people from Afghanistan nationals, and we do have some international teachers as well who volunteers, and they teach through the platform for Afghan women. The students are all women, are all university students of all measures, and those who are based in Afghanistan and they do not have any access to formal education in Afghanistan, to higher education.
And I, I'm I'm assuming, I mean, obviously this is all done clandestinely. So, you know, the women there, they're they shouldn't be seen to be accessing education even outside the country. I mean, what would happen if they were chosen? Oh,
Hello?
hello, we're
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, I think there was an inter. Yeah, could you please repeat your question? I think I lost that.
No worries. So the fact that women aren't allowed to access higher education within the country, obviously they're not supposed to be learning online either. So how is this being managed? What kind of what have you thought about to ensure that this is happening as in as safe a way as possible for the women who are involved?
So the point is that this online education that we deliver through our online platform is that the teachers, they are not requesting the students to have a video call. It's based on it, that's all optional. If the students wish to, because of the security concerns, they can do have. Otherwise, that's going to be all like, for example, sharing the slides. Like I know uh, whether it makes sense or not, but it's difficult as we teach. We do understand it's really difficult, but that's the only way and the only approach that we can take because to keep the students secure in Afghanistan. So at the moment, there is no like restrictions on women's education, gaining education, or having access to education through online platforms, as far as like they are not like identified in a way, or they don't say anything against the will of this regime. There is no specific risks to them. So that's why most of the students and in the university, in our institution as well, we do not ask our students to have a video call like we do now. So that's all optional. So it's based on the choice of the students, whether they wish to or not to. But yeah, that's how it works. But even like beside our institution, there are many other national and international institutions as well, which they deliver the same as what we do. And
Mhm.
it's again the same, like it's based on the choice of the students to have their cameras on. So in order not to be identified or not to be recognized or captured or to be publicized. That's the way that we do, or other institutions at the moment who which deliver online classes to students in Afghanistan, to women in Afghanistan, they follow.
Hmm. Hmm. And one thing that we were talking about before we started the live stream is kind of the next steps, because you were saying as well that it's actually very difficult for women to leave the country. So even if they are continuing their education, if they're gaining qualifications, they can't use that education within the country, and it's very difficult for them to find work abroad because of the travel restrictions as well.
Yeah, yeah, as we discussed about that. So women, they cannot travel either inside the country or outside of the country. So unless you have a male guardian with you, your brother, your close siblings, your family members, but again, that family member shouldn't be a female family member. Again, that should be a male family member, either your father, husband, brother, or your close relatives. So that is very difficult. We witnessed some of the students, some of these young women who secured the scholarships outside Afghanistan, who got opportunities outside Afghanistan. They work, you know, like eh, let me just say this also, that uh, this is a very tough time in Afghanistan, but the women are really dedicated. They really work hard. If anyone, for example, if I just imagine that I were, for example, someone from England, I wouldn't do that. But those women, because they dream big, they just want to resist. That's what I call it. They just want to challenge this ban, and they really work hard to get any educational opportunities outside Afghanistan. But they still they face lots of issues because they cannot travel alone. So what they do is that they have to take one of their siblings with them to any of those neighboring countries in Afghanistan, either Iran or, for example, Pakistan, Tajikistan, and then from there they can apply for visas. In Afghanistan also, they do not have, because we don't have any embassies of these countries in Afghanistan, except some of the regional countries or some of the neighboring countries of Afghanistan. So they're going to apply for visas from there, and then their family member come back to Afghanistan or go back to Afghanistan, and then they can travel abroad. It has been very difficult. We recently had a group of students, medical students, who traveled to Scotland. And you may have heard the news that a group of 19 girls from Afghanistan, and they waited for more than 1 year. You just imagine that. Why? Because it took a very long time for them to travel to Pakistan, firstly, because they were not allowed. It's not as easy. Like, for example, in the UK, you just board the train, you just board an airplane, and you just travel. No one is asking you, who are you, where are you going? But there in Afghanistan, it's not like that. If you're a single woman, like by your own, you have to tell them where are you going and why are you going. You're not allowed. It means you don't have any choice on that. That's why it's a very tough and long process, a very, like, in a way, impossible, but it's still the women they're following that. I see now, for example, I had a very close friend of mine who was a student in India. Then she moved to Afghanistan because of some visa issues. From Afghanistan, it took her a very long time, like more than 6 months. She went to Iran. From Iran again, she couldn't get a visa. She went to Pakistan. From Pakistan, she got a visa, and now she's in Germany. So you see that it's not very, like, straightforward that I'm going to apply, for example, in one of the embassies in London for a visa, and I get my visa. It's very difficult for them. First, they have to go to one of those neighboring countries, and they cannot travel by their own. They should have one of a male guardian by themselves.
Hmm. Hmm. I mean, like you say, just their determination, their resilience. I mean, it really is incredible. And although it shouldn't be that way, the things that they're being denied, they should be basic rights. The right to move, the right to education, and everything like that. So you were saying before as well that you've been doing some research into online education for women. What sort of things have you been looking into and what have you found out?
So when I started my course at the University of Exeter in the UK, I was so curious and thinking about that. What can I do? Because I have my own sisters in Afghanistan, and it's really difficult sometimes when you talk to them and how they say that during the day or during weeks they do not go outside home. You just imagine being like inside like the walls, the campus in your house, in your room, and you do not go outside because they don't have anything to do outside. And mostly they're very restricted. Even if they go outside, they do not feel safe. So I decided to do something at least that to raise awareness. That's what I can do. That's what I feel that's I'm capable of doing that. So as part of a master's degree, I did my dissertation in um, the women's education, women's online education, the opportunities that they have and the constraints they may face. And as part of my master's dissertation, and I did that research in my course, and luckily the result was good. And all my participants, they were from Afghanistan. They were all university students from two universities in Afghanistan. And and I also, beside this, I participated like some webinars, some conferences, such as the IATFL I attended last year, and some like I presented in TESOL France and some other conferences. Just that I think that what I can do is that I raise awareness, that I let the international community, that those who still do not know what's happening in Afghanistan, what's happening on women in Afghanistan, at least they should be aware of. And there should be some actions taken against the regime who are ruling the country. So
Mhm.
that is what I can do. And beside this, that I decided, okay, at least that I can teach them. I can help a group of young women who dream big, who wants to achieve something. I can just at least help them to achieve their goals.
Mhm, mhm. And I mean, you talk a lot here about raising awareness. What other actions do you feel the ELT community can take? Is there anything that we can do in terms of getting involved in the volunteering or anything else that we can do to inform people about the situation?
I think that what we do now, it's extraordinary, I think, because most of the people still they may not have a very like a broad knowledge or information or idea that what really is happening to women in Afghanistan. They may, for example, hear some news channels that okay, this has happened or this is happening, but what we see on the ground, this is much worse than what we heard on the news because the Taliban, they do not allow any information go out of Afghanistan. If any local news channel, national news channel, they do so, they are going to face the consequences. Many journalists have been imprisoned, they have been tortured, some of them they have been killed, they have been gone away, and no information about their whereabouts. So about what the ELT or, for example, any community who really wish to support women in Afghanistan, that women especially, is that to do volunteer. If we have, for example, if we can help at least the very minimum number of students, like just imagine 20 students. If you can help 20 students, so it's really a big job. It's a great job that we can do to those girls in Afghanistan. The point is that because I have been raised in Afghanistan. The people, especially the young generation, they're very interested in learning English. And there is only one reason for that, to get an opportunity outside the country. I remember myself when I was so young, I was so interested in learning English. And my my inspiration for this was, my reason for this was to get an opportunity and to get a quality education outside Afghanistan. So the same cases for everyone now, especially for women in Afghanistan. If any like community, sort of community, like for example, ELT communities, they can do at least support women, not in a very larger number. I know that's going to be very tough. In a very minimum number, which is possible. If you can help 10 people, that's going to be great. If you can help, for example, each community, if you can do, for example, 20 students, 20 girls in Afghanistan, that is brilliant. That is what we really, that's going to be counted as something that has been done. So this is what I call you. That's why I think it's very important that we have to raise awareness. Most of the communities, most of ELT communities, most of educational institutions, they may not know exactly what's happening in Afghanistan. So if they come to know, if they come to understand the situation and how really the women suffer in Afghanistan, they may do something. We are all humans, by the way. We have to help each other.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's what I call for educational institutions or ELT communities,
Mhm.
especially ELT communities. Why? Because the people in Afghanistan, you can't see anywhere else, I think, in the world. Because I traveled to some European countries and I lived in India for more than 4 years. And the number of private English language courses that you see in Afghanistan, you can't see anywhere else in the world. Because the people, the young generation, they're highly interested. They're very interested in learning English.
Mhm.
And the only reason is to get an educational opportunity outside Afghanistan for a better life, for a better future, and for a better or quality education.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Like you say, they're just dreaming big and looking for the opportunities that are available to them, so that hopefully at some point they will be able to take those opportunities and get back into education in a proper way, not just learning online secretly.
Yeah.
Um, so Javid, I'll ask you afterwards to what kind of groups people can get in contact with, and I'll put the links on Facebook and on the YouTube video so that if people want to get involved, then they can. Because I know a few years ago, unfortunately, when the Taliban first came back into power, there was a big surge for volunteers. And then obviously there's been all sorts of other devastating things happening around the world. So I don't know whether those groups are still active, but we can certainly give people some information for where they might find resources or opportunities to volunteer. Uh, I don't know if there's anything else that you want to add, Javid. I mean, it's been such an honor to talk to you this morning about the situation. I've learned a lot. I was one of those people who read things in the newspaper but wasn't really aware of just how bad it was there.
Well, yeah, thank you, Teresa, again for uh, giving this opportunity at least to talk about. I'm sure this is a sort of awareness that we can bring to a wider community, to international society or community. So what I can call again is that anyone who can do at least to volunteer, they can do that. That's very easy to access them. They can do through some formal institutions to at least once, for example, in a week or twice in a week, based on their own major or qualification they do have it. They might help those girls in Afghanistan, especially if they are, for example, good in English. That's going to be very good. And what is more welcoming at the moment or more helpful in Afghanistan at the moment for those girls is English. That's what I can understand. That's what I would say. Why is that? Because as you also mentioned that even if those girls in Afghanistan they finish a course, they complete a course, a degree, there is no job opportunity there in Afghanistan. So the point is that at least if they have a better or access or an access to a quality education outside Afghanistan, that's going to guarantee for them at least a better or a brighter future. So I
Mhm.
can call on anyone who is interested. I'm sure there are lots of people who are really interested, but they may have this question in their mind that how? That's also a big question. There are lots of um, institutions inside Afghanistan who are dealing with this, lots of universities which volunteer, and they can do that through those institutions. They can form like privately. I could personally help them, or if they reach out any of those universities, they can refer their like some links and some of their students to be helped with. So that's what I can call on everyone who can do or everyone who wishes to take part, but at least do something good to the people,
Mhm.
to women in Afghanistan.
Fantastic. Yep. Well, I'm sure I'll I'll share this far and wide once we finish the live stream because I do think that it is a really important topic and to be able to talk to someone who has that lived experience and who's much more aware of the situation is great. So yes, if anyone is interested, I'm going to find some links and put them on the video or do reach out to Javid either on Facebook or on LinkedIn for more information as well. So thank you, Javid, for taking the time to chat to us this morning.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Teresa. It was nice talking to you.
And everyone will be back in 2025 with some more live streams in the TEFL Development Hub and Wednesday questions and so on. So stay safe and see